My friend said, whether it is technological advancement or not, we keep doing and doing without wondering about the consequences, and people who can't even ask themselves this cannot even man up to their own actions and the resultant consequences. One who raises that type of question is a coward. He's too afraid to face consequences, and rather he will answer a question with a question. And I say yes. The question can always be answered with another question, but there is an end to it. And that end is the abyss. My friend thought for a while. He thought if it would really matter if humanity would destroy itself. And we're quite a way towards it. If you look at things like the spread of AIDS, nuclear weapons, pollution in some countries. And he said, yes, sure. If you think about spreading of sexual diseases in some continents. Think about poverty, war, civil wars. Yes, he said, despite all of that, the potential of mankind is unknown. And he said, we don't know what we're capable of to our full extent. And he said, I'm convinced of a society where people contribute in a way to decrease human suffering, to increase morals and values, and to stop with all the bullshit. He wants a society where people would study everything, study the consequences of their actions, contemplate the results of their actions before acting. And I said, well, that would require the viewpoint that morals and values exist outside of our physical reality, and something might be said for that. Because let's say, for example, let us not begin with the more complicated ideals. But let's, for example, take some sort of famous song. Just take some famous song that you know. Just have it in your mind, and then ask yourself the question: in what sense does that song exist? Does it only exist when you're humming it, when you are listening to it? Does it exist when nobody is listening to that song or humming that song? There might be some single point in time that it is not broadcasted on radio or television or sang by anyone. But then does it still exist? Does the song exist at a time when nobody is listening to it or whistling it? In what sense does that song exist at that specific point in time? Well, someone might come up with the exact notes of that song and realize it into the physical world, even though we had never heard anyone humming it or singing it before. But it would still be exactly the same song. So, the song exists in two senses. It exists in a sense outside of the physical world, because the song still exists if nobody hums it or sings it or plays it on the CD. It still exists, because someone could make up the same song exactly at some other point in time and envision it and conceive it exactly the same way as it was before. So, since it is still the same song, it existed outside of nobody humming it or singing it or playing it on CD. And so it must have, in a sense, existed from the beginning of time in the way that the form of a perfect circle always exists. Now, if we understand that about songs, then it is also possible to think the same way about the other ideas. And so, by advancing our species through collective and individual learning, we will become more open-minded and more receptive towards values and morals and ideals as we advance our species through learning. And some of these ideas are so great that we cannot understand them in our present state. Some of these ideas are so wise and so meaningful that their very existence makes it obvious why mankind should not destroy itself. Because if mankind destroys itself, we discard the possibility of ever receiving these ideas. The ideas that we can conceive and understand today are limited. But as our brains develop, the spectrum of ideas that we can contemplate and conceive becomes wider. So, as we as a species develop ourselves, as we train our brains, as we increase our brains, the spectrum of ideas that we can conceive becomes wider. And as it does, ideas will come to us. Ideas that will explain why it is all worth it. And it would be pitiful to destroy ourselves and our potential with it, because we have not realized that potential today. And also, if we destroy ourselves and the world at the same time, then we would also destroy the other species, and we have no right to extend our self-hatred to other species. Since we have seen that ideas exist in a sense outside of physical reality, in the sense that I can have an idea and forget about it, and everyone forgets about it. But someone else in the future might conceive exactly the same idea, and it would still be the same idea. So in a sense, the idea has always existed outside of the physical reality. And of course, our brains are limited, so we can't understand every idea. But as we develop or evolve, as some would say, as our species evolves, some would say, then we can comprehend a greater range of ideas. And these ideas might be much wiser and much more meaningful than the ideas that we can conceive or comprehend today. Yes, ideas beyond our comprehension. And we would lose these ideas forever if we would destroy ourselves today. So that would be a waste of our potentiality. But that raises the question, what is the point if nobody recognizes its potentiality? And to this, my friend said, you must confide in those few individuals who do have these characteristics, such as you and me, and perhaps, he said, perhaps we are the only ones left who even consider such ideas. And yes, he had a point there. Greatness does not only require talent and potential. Greatness also requires recognition. Because there's probably a lot of great ideas in history that we don't know about simply because no one cared enough to remember them or to carry them on to the future. So they were forgotten. Then again, if you look at people who had success in spreading their ideas, they always spoke their ideas They were outspoken about their opinion, and they convinced many people to share the same goal. Perhaps someone with a righteous and defendable idea. But if, let's say, that person would not have the communication skills to present that idea to others, then it nullifies the use to which it all was. For every great idea that was conceived but not realized, it goes all for nothing.